Hello everyone and welcome to Covetous Imp Gaming. Today I want to talk about the first wave of rules for One D&D, Character Origins. If you haven't done so already, please like this video, leave us a comment below about the rules that you hate, the rules that you love, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to our future content, and check us out on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. A few things first. Everything I say in this video is my opinion. My opinion may not be right to you, and you're more than welcome to have your own opinion. More importantly, the rules that are in this test phase are just that. They're testing. Not all of these rules will make it to print. And the most important part of this is going to be the feedback. If you've read through these or you've play tested these rules and you hate something or you love something, use the feedback so they know, I like this because X, Y, and Z. I hate this because A, B, C. If you just say, I hate this rule, it doesn't tell them what's really wrong with it. And more importantly, if these rules do make it to print and there's something that you don't like, we get handbooks and manuals and guides. We don't get rule books. So everything in this game is very flexible. So if you hate a rule that makes it to One D&D, talk to your dungeon master, talk to your table. I don't like this rule. Can we use a 5e rule? Or can we use a modified rule? And more than likely, your table is going to allow for that to happen. So this first rules iteration was all about character creation and your character origin. The basic principle is you assign your stats, you pick a class, you pick a race, you pick a background, you pick a language. In 5e, your initial ability score increase was directly tied to your race. That goes away, and now it is tied to your background instead. And there's a ton of pre-generated backgrounds that you can pick from, and if none of those suit the character that you're trying to make, then you're also able to make your own. These backgrounds also have level 1 feats associated with them, and there's a list of level 1 feats, which also introduces this new change that feats will have a level assigned to them, kind of like Warlock invocations, where you can't take this invocation until you're this level. So to do that with feats takes away that initial, like, I'm taking this ridiculous feat at level 1, followed by this other ridiculous feat at level 4, and now I am the party's main tank and main DPS all at once. So the new feats are very, they're low impact, but still very helpful, and things that the party will get a ton of use out of and will scale well as the party levels up. So in my video last week, I talked about how I typically ban variant human. And now with these new rules, everyone starting with a feat at level 1 kind of reinforces the argument that everyone should just start at that level playing field. If everyone starts with a feat at level 1, regardless of what race they are, it still feels fair to me. The next thing I want to talk about is inspiration. Seems like it's going to be a very big part of One D&D. It is directly tied to the human racial feat. The musician feat awards inspiration to the entire party after a short or long rest, and getting a nat 20 on any check at all, attack, skill check, or a saving throw, awards the character who got the nat 20 inspiration. So this kind of feels like one of those things where you're giving inspiration to just give inspiration. And I feel like I am very tight-fisted when it comes to giving inspiration, to the point that I usually have a post-it note on my DM screen that says, give inspiration tonight, find somebody to give inspiration to, or, you know, be inspired by something. And I think that it's important to reward those I thought outside the box. I saved the party from the clutches of defeat, or I just role-played my character well. I think that those things are very important to reward with inspiration. But giving somebody inspiration for getting a nat 20, which is just going to help them get a nat 20 later to get another inspiration, seems weird. It seems like you're just giving them crits to get crits to get crits to get crits. That's a big one that I want to know what the world thinks. So on the subject of criticals, the video that accompanied this update went into detail about critical hits, and there is a blurb in the rules about how only weapons will critical hit. So a weapon or an unarmed strike, those are the things that will critical hit, implying that spells would not critical hit. So your firebolt will no longer critical hit. And people kind of gleaned from this that the extra damage from things like sneak attack and smite and hunter's mark will not crit. And while I can kind of agree with this and disagree with it, I think that that the 5e rules of any time that you're rolling dice, you roll twice as many dice, or some people just do, you roll and you double. That's dice that are getting rolled, and that makes sense. The opposite side of that camp, though, of the amount of damage that you can put out with a critical smite or a critical sneak attack is pretty crazy. And at the same time, a firebolt, the wizards put out 0 effort. They've used a cantrip to firebolt something, and to have that damage get doubled feels like a lot of damage, way more than potentially a barbarian's putting out at the same level, or at least equal to that a barbarian's putting out at the same level. But they're in the front line and taking every hit or every other hit, where the mage might, or the wizard might sit in the back and take no damage. They went on to say that monsters should also no longer critical hit, and that their big damage burst comes from their recharge ability. So I think that you're going to see a lot more recharge abilities in the new monster manual. And at the same time, you're going to see maybe that the damage that is on their regular attack maybe gets a little bit of a bump. Some things have already been bumped and do a decent amount of damage on a normal hit, and don't necessarily, making a critical hit just a one-shot on something. So, and again, I can see this argument making sense. Your big wave of damage is that recharge ability, and your regular hits should feel like regular hits. So there were a lot of changes to the core races of D&D, and I think that a lot of them were brought up to at least the Monsters of the Multiverse level of power. Nothing feels like you're just worse for not being a kobold or a Yuan-Ti. So the next rule that they went into discuss was the D20 test. The D20 test now is any time that you roll your D20. So an attack, a saving throw, or an ability check is all lumped together, where before your attacks had different rules than your saving throws and your ability checks. With an attack, a 20 always hit, a 1 always missed. With ability checks and saving throws, 1s could have ridiculous modifiers added to them and could succeed. Or a 20 could have a poor modifier added to it and still fail. So in this new rule, a 20 will always be a success, regardless of attack, saving throw, or ability check. And a 1 will always be a failure. The only caveat is that it has to have a DC between 5 and 30. So what do you guys think about these rules changes and the chance that these rules make it into print and this becomes the new way to play D&D? I, for one, am okay with almost all of them. Inspiration is the one that I feel a little weird about, just because, like I said, you're awarding inspiration for just being lucky with your dice. Other than that, if these rules release tomorrow, I would be overall generally satisfied with them. You can find all of these new rules over at D&D Beyond in a downloadable PDF. The feedback will also be available on D&D Beyond, and it will open up on September 1st. Overall, I feel like everything is really balanced in these new rules. But please let me know what you think about these rules in the comments down below. And make sure, when it's all said and done and you've read through these rules or you've tested these rules, that you take a few minutes and fill out the feedback as well. I'm going to continue to do videos about these rules updates as they release. That's all I've got for this week. Thanks for watching. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you again soon.